Hello guys, and welcome to another Blender tutorial. So today I'm going to show you how to make this awesome morphing animation where we make a coin, and what can be any coin you want. I just went with a penny, and we're going to morph it into a bill, in this case an American dollar. So this can work for any kind of currency, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to be showing you how we're going to do the actual morphing of the geometry itself, but I'm also going to show you how we can set up two different UV coordinates and then how we're going to blend between those as well in our material shader setup. So this is going to be something you can probably apply to a lot of different things and different kind of workflows. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. And by the way, those of you who have joined the server yesterday on Discord, I can't believe how many people have joined. It's really awesome. So if you haven't already done the Discord server and you want to join that, you can check it in the description below. And as far as this little scene goes here, I'll probably put it on Patreon as well. So let's get started with this little tutorial. So first of all, you're going to get some X-Files music playing in the background. Once you've done that, you can open up a browser of your choice, type in something like dollar bill, and just look for a note that will work for you. I just went with the basic $1 bill. You can use whatever country or currency you want. And then you're going to do the same thing with a coin. In this case, I just typed in penny and I found one that I liked. So just make sure that the lighting is consistent. There's not too many hard shadows or reflective parts on the images. That'll just make it look a little bit better. So once you've gotten these two things, just put them on your desktop, whatever. You can see I've got one here called coin and one image texture called bill, and I kind of like cropped them in paint, actually. I didn't even use anything fancy. So once you've done that, go ahead and open up a new scene in Blender. And I'm using Blender 2.91, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit A to select everything, and I'm going to hit X and delete. And then I'm actually going to go Shift A again and add in the default cube, because I just remembered we're actually using a default cube, even though we're going to be modeling it into the coin. And there's several reasons for that, but let's tab into edit mode with the default cube selected. And with everything in here, all the geometry active, we're going to hit 3 to go into our right orthographic view. And we're going to go S, Y, and we're just going to flatten it. So we want to make this roughly about the thickness of a coin. So if you could picture a coin kind of in this space here, it would be roughly about that thick. So just try and figure it out. And then what we're going to do is we need to add in some more geometry. So we're going to come over here, hovering with our cursor. I'm going to hit Control R. You're going to see a yellow line appearing, and I'm just going to roll my middle mouse button up a few times till I get about this many cuts. So I'm just going to click, and then I'm going to come up here in one of these corners with my cursor. I'm going to hit Control R. See the yellow line and just roll your middle mouse button, and I want to roll in the same amount. So I'm going to roll the same amount of times, and you can see here now we have these nice even squares here. We don't need anything on the side here, that won't be necessary. So now we need to actually model this into a coin. That's super simple to do. We're going to start by deselecting everything, and then let's just go to our edge select option here. Hold in Shift and Alt at the same time. If you hold both of those in, you can click on any one of these edges here, and then do the same thing on the sides here. Just going all the way around like this. So just selecting all of these guys here. And then we're going to go Shift, Alt, and S at the same time. Just move your mouse and it's going to round those out. So we're going to round it out like that. And don't worry about all the intersection, we'll fix that in a second. Then we're going to go Shift, Alt again at the back. Click on an edge. And then do the same thing here. At the bottom, just click on an edge. It'll select the whole edge. And Shift, Alt still in. We're going to click on that edge there. And let's do the same thing, Shift, Alt, and S. Just hit them and go like that till it's all nice and rounded out. Then we're simply going to go to our face select option over here. Shift, Alt, hold them both in, and then click on one of these edges here, and it's going to select this whole row of faces on the border. And then if you hit S, Alt, and Y, so S, Alt, Y, once again, S, Alt, Y, and you can scale it out along the Z and the X axes. It'll kind of constrain them to those parameters. So I'm going to go with something like that. So here we have our coin. And I know you're probably thinking, why didn't we just add in something like a circle and just fill it in with a face? This is just going to make it easier when we actually morph this into a dollar. It'll just make more sense geometrically. So once you have a coin that you're happy with, you're happy with the thickness, you're then going to go back into object mode. You're going to go over to your shape keys again. You're going to click the little plus for the second time, and you're going to add in your first shape key. So let's click on that. Let's just call it bill. And let's just click on the first one, the basis one, and let's just call that coin. So I'm going to just call it coin and bill. So we want to make sure that we actually select the bill over here. Make sure not to do the coin again. So we want to make sure to select the bill. Then we're going to tab into edit mode. And now we're gonna change the shape of this in here. So we have two kind of like shape keys we can morph between. So what we're gonna do is select all of the faces at the top. Okay. So in this case, I'm gonna select all of the faces between the bottom of this triangle here in the corner and this one over here. So you can just use those triangles for reference. In fact, look at this line over here. You wanna select all of the top faces above there like that. Then you're gonna go S, Z, so that's going to scale it on the Z-axis, and you're going to hit 0, and that's going to flatten it perfectly. And we're going to do the exact same thing in the bottom. So see these triangles here? Use that line over here as reference. So we're going to select this face over here, and then we're going to select all of the faces like that. So you can see here, all the way underneath this line, all the bottom faces there we have selected. We're going to go S, Z once again and hit 0, and it's just going to flatten it on the Z-axis. Now we're going to go to a vertex select option. Just hit Z, go into wireframe. Make sure everything's deselected. And in your front orthographic view, just select all of the vertices here to the side. Hit S, X, and 0 to flatten them on the X-axis. And then these ones at the side as well. So exact mirror of the other side. Select all of these ones here. S, X, and 0. Hit Enter. So now we have this perfect kind of symmetrical object here, but it still doesn't really look like any bill I've ever seen. So we need to hit A to select all of the geometry. We're gonna go S and we're gonna hit Y and just flatten it on the Y axis till it's really, really flat, kind of like a piece of paper. And then we're just gonna, with all of this geometry still active, we're gonna hit S, X, and we're gonna type in 2.3 and we're gonna hit Enter. Now this is kind of similar to what I see on a dollar bill, like that kind of dimensions. Depending on what kind of note you use, some notes are a little bit stubbier, a little bit shorter, so you might just want to shorten it a little bit on the X. It doesn't really matter, just something roughly in the ballpark of your bill will do. And now we can tab out of edit mode. Now once we've tabbed back into object mode, you can see here it just looks like the coin. But if we actually click and select this bill shape key over here, we can see down here we have a value slider. So now if you drag that up to 1, you can see it morphs into a bill, and that looks really cool. So while we're at it, just drag it back down to 0, and just to make this look better, I'm going to go to my modifiers. This won't hurt anything. Just add a bevel on here. Come down to the limit method. Just make it angle because we don't want it to be applied to every face, just the angled ones. And we're going to come here to the amount and just drag that down till you have a little bit of a bevel here. Bump up that segment amount a few times. Go to object mode and just enable shade smooth. So now you have a bit of a smoother looking coin. So this is the actual geometry part of it done now. So now we're going to get into setting up the textures here. And I'm going to show you how we are going to make two separate UV maps that are going to be essential for doing this. So let's start by going over to our UV editing workspace. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click Open on this tab here. I'm going to go to my desktop. You can go wherever you saved your images, but I'm going to get the coin texture of my choice. I'm going to click on coin. I'm going to open that JPEG. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the UV Maps tab down here. And I'm going to double click on this default one here called UV Maps. I'm going to call it Coin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and make sure to select my first shape key here, the coin shape key. It's super important. And I'm in edit mode, by the way. So I'm in edit mode. I've got all of the geometry active here. I've got my coin UV map thing selected. And in my front orthographic view, I'm going to hit U. And I'm going to go project from view. Then over here, I'm going to select all of the geometry. I'm going to hit S to scale it up, and I'm just going to hit G to move it. And I'm going to match it up as close as I can with my image here. So you can just kind of get it as close as you can. Make sure not to get any of the background parts in it. And now if we actually want to see this, we can just quickly go over to our shading workspace, just real quick. Let's just click New here, and let's just call it Money. And what we're going to do is, if you have Node Wrangler enabled, just go to Preferences, go to your add-ons, just type in Node, and make sure to click on Node Wrangler here. So once you enable that, if you select your principal shader, you can hit Control-T or Command-T. It'll automatically add in these two nodes for you. So I could have just added in the image texture, I suppose, because we're not going to need the mapping node and the texture coordinate. What we are going to type in is we're going to go Shift-A, we're going to search, and we're going to get a UV. So type in UV and grab a UV map here. Come to the drop down and just select the coin and take the UV and put it into the vector input of the image texture there. So now we also need to come to the drop down here and just select that coin texture there. So now we can see we actually have it. So if you hit Z, make sure in your material preview mode, obviously it's not going to work in solid, so just make sure material preview. Let's go back to that UV editing workspace. And once again, hit Z, go into material view here, and now we can see it. But we're going to run into an issue. If we have to UV unwrap this with the same UV coordinate, the problem we're going to have is it's not going to match up with the image. So we need to create two UV groups. So we're going to click on plus again, and we're going to double click on this one, and we're going to call this one Bill. And with the Bill here selected, make sure you're not on the coin here. Make sure to select the Bill UV map. While we're in edit mode here, we're going to come up and just click on the little cross to get rid of that texture. We're going to hit open, and wherever you have it saved on the computer, get the Bill image. So I'm going to open image. And now we're gonna, with this Bill UV selected, we're gonna go into our front orthographic view here, and we're gonna make sure to select our Bill here. Make sure the Bill is selected under the shape keys. And with all of this geometry active, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna hit U, and we're gonna go project from view. And we can see over here, it's over here, so make sure to select all of this geometry, hit S to scale it up a bit, and then S, Y, or SX, whatever you need to do, just to kind of scale it up to the same dimensions as your Bill here. So that's super simple to do. So at the moment, obviously it's not making much sense because of what's going on in our shader view. So now that we have that done, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to our shading workspace, and we need to create two different groups. At the moment, we kind of have this coin material here. So you can see we have the coin image. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these three nodes here, just drag them off to the side. And then we're going to go Shift D to duplicate them and bring them down. So we want the exact same copy down here. And then we're going to just come here to the drop down on this one, and we're going to get that Bill image. And we're also going to come to the UV drop down here and get that Bill UV coordinate. So now if I were to plug this bottom principle into the surface here, we're going to see we have that money material. And obviously the coin isn't morphed at the moment, so it doesn't make sense, but we'll get into that in a little while. But what we need to do is we need to go Shift A, we need to click search, type in mix, and we need to grab ourselves a mix shader. Then we're going to take the shader input at the bottom, plug it in. So our bottom material here is going to go into the bottom socket, and then the top principled shader, just plug that into the top input here. Then just take this main shader output and plug it into your surface. So now it's automatically going to try and mix these 50-50, and it looks quite horrible. But we can now actually do have a slider here that we can add keyframes to. So let's just start by having it as the coin. So we're going to put this full all the way down to 0. And now we can get into the animation. So let's go over to in fact, let's just stay here because we're going to need to be here in the material editor. So let's come over here, and this is going to be a bit tricky, but hover over here in the corner. You're going to see this little cross appearing, and you're going to pull up and create a new tab, come to the drop down here and make it timeline. Okay, so just move this over to the side a bit as well. So now we're gonna work over here and do some animation. So let's start by selecting our coin here, and we're gonna come to frame 10. I'm gonna start on frame 10. And on frame 10, I'm gonna also go over to the object data properties over here. I'm gonna make sure to select this Bill over here. So make sure to select the Bill keyframe. And with a value of 0 here, we're going to hit I to insert a keyframe. So make sure the value here is 0. Hit I to insert a keyframe on frame 10, or just click on the little dot next to here. And then we're going to go over to frame 50. So on frame 50, we're going to drag this value all the way up to 1, and then click on this little button next to it to add in a keyframe, or you can just hit I. And let's go over and drag this to frame 80. So we have a bit of a hold, and once again I'm going to click on that keyframe thing there again, so we have a hold here. And then I'm going to go to frame 120, and I'm going to make this value 0 again, and then click on here to add a keyframe. Let's come to our end frame value here and just make it something like 120. So now it's going to be, let's just have a look at that. So if you go to frame 1 and you hit the spacebar, you can see it's just going to go like that and then go back, and it should be loopable. But obviously the textures don't make sense at the moment. So let's go over here into our workspace. And with this Bill still selected, we're going to go to frame 10. And on frame 10, we know that the material makes sense. So we're going to leave this value here at 0. So come on frame 10. And with this mix shader here, hover over the 0 value here and hit I to insert a keyframe. And then we're going to come up to frame 50. And on frame 50, we're going to come and make this value here 1. So type in 1 or just drag it up. Hovering over it, hit I to insert a keyframe. And then do the same thing up to frame 80. Go to frame 80 with a value of 1, hit I. And then back to 120, go to 120, drag it down to 0, and then hit I to insert a keyframe. So now, if we go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, not only are we going to get the actual physical morphing of the geometry, we're going to get those two textures that are going to be blended together like that. And that is pretty much the tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll quickly show you my original here. So I just kind of set up a little scene here where I put two different ones in, just waiting for it to render. And you can see I kind of just inverted it. So while the coin here is morphing, the note is morphing the other way around. So this is what you can do with it, and this can kind of be applied to a lot of different things in Blender. So I hope you guys found this little morphing tutorial useful. If you do, please like and subscribe. If you haven't already joined the Discord server where there's a lot of cool stuff going on, make sure to do that as well. And I really do appreciate those of you who support me on Patreon, where I will be making this blend file available as well. So I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe and look after each other.